Okay, today we're gonna improve sign-up form by implementing some rich messaging functionality. For example, messages that provide user with information on username availability next to the username field, which queries database each time the application user hits the some keyboard keys. Let's start by going to sign up view. Also, I will open the welcome view. Okay. And let's start by adding the same focus component as we did for sign-in form. And also modify messages components to display only global messages with the specific identifiers. And now we will learn how to use PrimeFaces Ajax functionality. For instance, we want to enable Ajax functionality for input text field first name. So inside input text opening and closing tag, we add following: p Ajax. And now let's play with some attributes. First of all, we would like to select the event on which Ajax should perform the update. So we add attribute event, and here we can choose from a couple of events. You can overview all events in PrimeFaces official documentation, and I will use for demonstration purposes key up event. That means that every time keyboard key is pressed and released, this Ajax update functionality is invoked. The next attribute we would like to configure is the update, where we should deploy component identifier, which should be updated on that key up event. In our case, it will be message component, which will create after we finish Ajax attribute configuration. I will call this component first name message, and also add global attribute and set it to false to tell that we do not want to go messages to go to the global messages component. And now we will create first name messages component. Exactly as we did it for sign-in form yesterday. And create the message component itself. ID first name message. And for input field first name. And let's do the same for the rest of fields. The next field is last name, where we also add the Ajax functionality on key up event. Instead of first name message component update, we update last name message component. and also add that message component. Last name message for field last name. The next one is the username, and this field is special because we wanna make a database query each time the key is pressed, and to do that we need to attach the listener to that field. Basically, we are starting by doing the same, by copying this Ajax, change this to username message, global false, and additionally adding the listener attribute, where by expression language we point to the service which will be our listener. We will also use our user service for this purpose. So we type in user service and finally invoke method check available, which we'll create later. Okay, and again create the message component. Let's go to the password fields, and here we do not require Ajax functionality. I think we should just substitute this empty output text component to one of messages component. Message +1 message for field +1. The same we do for repeat password field. Password2 +2. So saving this, and now we go and create that check available method in our user service, which will be used for Ajax database querying. Close this. Okay, user service. First we want to define it in interface and then implement it. Okay. Of course, it's a Boolean return type. Check available. And now, interesting part, because this method is invoked by Ajax, and in order to use this method as listener for Ajax, we need to pass in the parameters the instance of Ajax behavior event, which is from JavaX Faces event package. Event. Parameters Ajax event. Check username availability UI Ajax use. So this is for user interface Ajax use. So let's go for implementation. Save the interface, and immediately we have an error exception in our implementation class, because we need to implement that method, the declaration, abstract method. Okay, so let's go here and implement this method. Good. And let's provide the implementation. First of all, we need to obtain the component on which that Ajax event was invoked. So we know that it was input text component from PrimeFaces. So I type here input text, and from the org.primefaces.component input text package, and we can obtain that component from the past event by invoking the getSource method. And we need to cast, because this returns object, we need to cast it to input text. So cast to input text. Good. The next thing we will do, we want to obtain that value which user typed in that input text field. To do this, we create new variable with a string type value, and invoke from the input text component method called getValue, and cast it to string type. And the next step is actually the validation itself. We create a new Boolean variable and call it, for example, available, and again use our user DAO to check the username availability, and of course by passing this value from that input text. And we want to return that Boolean value, but before return we need to let it go through some conditional validations, and this will look like if-else statement. Here I put the returned value from the user DAO and create the corresponding messages. So again, faces message, construct error message, in this case null, and we want to use here the same message as we used before. Username is not available, and pass this variable to be the value from the input text component. Oops. So good, and we need to add it to faces context now. Get faces context, add message, and here in fact we need to provide the component ID, which we can obtain from event get component dot get client ID, and here we just pass the message. Good. And in the else case, we create the message, but it will not be error message, it will be the info message. Construct info message, null, string format, also pass the value here, and the message will look like username is available, and again add it to faces context. And now we are going to test it and to see if this will work. So let's go and compile it. Oops. Well, just in case, restart the server. Okay, let's go to the application. Oh. Okay. Seems like we made a mistake with the panel grid end tag. Okay, let's look. What we did wrong. Oh yeah, here's it. Stupid mistake. Okay, never mind. Save. And again. Second try. Okay, we fixed that. Oops, sorry, I already pressed some key and you see that the first message came up. So let's see what's gonna happen if we try to submit the empty form. Hit, and we have the 5 error messages for each field separately. So the values is required. So if we try to type in something, the message for first name field should be updated automatically on key up event. So I press and it's still too short, and we see that the length is less than allowable minimum of 2 message, and if I press again, then there's no error messages. So it works in this way. Yeah. And it also works if we try to enter some text in the empty field and the messages appears also. So, and finally, let's try the username database Ajax database querying. So we already know that Jhat username is already used. So let's try to input it. So it was you already see that JH is available, which this message informs us about that. And if I try Jhat, oh, very cool, we see that Jhat is not available. And if we try something longer, then we see that it's again available. So each time I press the keyboard key, this check available listener method is invoked, which indeed makes the user DAO database querying to check if a user is existing or not. So I think this is an extremely cool feature, and you can spend some time playing with it. So, okay, and if we try to, despite that message, which informs that username is not available, we, despite of that message, try to add user with that username, then we should see sign up, and we see the global message here about that we can't add this user. And probably if we try another user name, then I click sign up and we ended up in our account and new user is added. So works fine. Okay, let's go back to Eclipse. Some words about these messages. You should never hardcode it to Java classes like I did here for just for demonstration. But in real-world applications, you will use the properties files to hold or your labels and text messages in it and access that property file from Java. It's also, this approach also enables the internationalization and multi-language capabilities of application. But we will do, we will learn how to read properties files to obtain these messages. And this is extremely simple in Java. Go to source main resources folder and inside create the properties file. So you need to create just an empty file and let's call it message labels dot properties and finish. And inside we have the content, which is key value format. This means the first goes the key user, for example, user exists message, then message itself. Yeah, and the message was username is not available. This one, I will just copy this to properties file, and the same I do for user available message. And I think we have the third, which we'll call bad credentials. And this will be this message. Okay, good. Save this, and now all you need to do is go to the user service impl and somewhere create the protected method which returns resource bundle from Java util package, and I'll call this message this method get message bundle. And inside return resource bundle dot get bundle, and here you need to point to that properties file name, message labels. Okay, good. And now you can substitute those messages by invoking this method and by providing the key of message. So here I'll change this string to getMessageBundle dot get string type and the key name, which for this message was bad credentials. For this message, is username is available, this key, and for this one, username is not available, is this key. And I think we had another one somewhere in this class. Yeah, here's it. And change it also to userExistMessage. So good. I save this. And let's try it also. Recompile. And if we still see the messages, then the properties file works fine. So I'll type in correct user, and I still got the message here. And if we go to the username, then I still got the username is available and username is not available. So messages properties file works. So okay, let's go back to Eclipse. Now let's go to our general template and add some new PrimeFaces components here. One of them will be the logout panel, so we can just hit the link and we will be logged out, and another will be the component which is called growl. You can overview on the PrimeFaces official website. Basically the growl component is growl, is extension to messages component, just with different appearance and different stylings. So it's partially transparent pop-up window, which I find to be cute. So here in the body, let's compact this. And after dialog, I'm adding the following component, which is PrimeFaces growl with ID growl messages, show detail false to keep it short, sticky. I think it's if we set it to true, then we can close that message only by clicking the closing button, or if we set it to false, then it can disappear automatically. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was acting like this. And the life is time by end of which this message should disappear. So this is in milliseconds, so it's 13 seconds. And we will use this message component to greet the new user that logs in. And for our logout panel, we go into the container, and just before header, let's create a new block ID greeting. And there comes the interesting part. Inside this we use the GSTL core to set the conditional viewing capabilities, so that we can test some condition and decide to display or not display some content inside that condition. And we need it to display the logout panel only then when the user is logged in, and we shouldn't display this panel when the user is logged out. So let's see it on some example. So here we use the namespace C, which is GSTL core, and put the condition if statement to test this condition. And here we test this field in current user, which is held in Spring Security context. This variable is not something we implemented or we should implement. This is just comes in box with the Spring Security. And if a user is authenticated by Spring Security, then this name property holds some value. So we test it if it is empty. If it is not empty, then we show what's inside that if statement here. And if this is false, then this will not be shown. And here we just do some text, which is welcome in bold, and then we access some variables from user, which flow scope variable, user is flow scope variable, and we retrieve the first name and last name, and then we just put the logout link button with some image inside. First of all, I'll put this image into the application images folder. Inside here I have the image prepared, and I just drag it to images. So we have the image. So here's our link to logout service. And here we reference the user flow scope variable, but in account flow we don't have it. So let's go to the account Webflow definition file. And here we need to preload the user entity in the beginning of the flow, and we can do it by using the onStart, which means actions to execute when this flow starts. So we can put inside these everything we want that should happen when the flow starts. In our case, we need to preload the user entity from database, because main flow and account flow is totally different flows, and even if there exists the functionality that allows us to share the variables between different flows, in our case it will be totally fine if we preload the user entity from the database in this flow also. So we use again the evaluate expression to set the flow scope variable that will be used across all account flow. So here we will use again our user service and invoke method load user entity by user name, and pass the name from current user string security holder. And we need to put the returned value to flow scope variable user, which we will use in our greeting section here to get the first name and last name of the user. And what this means, flow scope, it could be also view scope or request scopes. So there's a different scopes in which this variable will be available. In our case, we put this variable into the flow scope, so that means that this variable will be available across all flow until it is destroyed. So we put that object returned by this method into this flow scope user variable, and this is a user entity instance, which means that we can't use a very similar method load user by username, which returns a user detail, and we need to create a new method that just returns the user entity with help of user DAO. So save this. First of all, I'll go to user service interface and create method which returns our own user entity, and the name of method will be this one, and we need to pass the username. Retrieves full user records from database by username. Save. And here I'll implement this. Okay. And all we need to do here is just to return user DAO, load user by username, and pass that username, and that's all. That's all we need to do in this method. And let's try to test it. Okay, we can use the existing user to log in. Oh my god, yeah. We need to perform some stylings here. So let's go to style CSS. And I copied some stylings for greeting box with some font modification, color, flow to right, height and margins, and also to reduce the size of the image. Click save, hot install, and try to refresh the page. And finally we got beautiful welcome message here in the upper side, which welcomes by first name and last name, and we have the logout button, which if we click we go back to sign in, and if we try login again, oops, oh my god, I'm out of memory. So yeah, probably it's time to increase the Java memory available to Java. Okay, I'll restart the server. And try to log in. So the application retrieved our first name and last name from the database. And we also can use it now, first name and last name here. So log out, and we use it in a similar way. Account for use the expression language user. So we again reference the Flowscope variable user, this one, dot first name and user last name. Save, and let's see. And again, here's our first name and last name, the same as here. Okay. And probably the last thing I would like to show you guys today is the greeting growl message after a user logs in. And we want to do it when the view is loaded, and I found that it can be done by GSF event, which we can do by the following piece of code. So the following listener method is invoked when the view is loaded, and we choose the event type, which is post add to view, which allows us this kind of functionality, and then at that event it invokes the listener, which will create a new class that we'll call UI utils, which will help with the different types of functionality for user interface. And additionally, we update the growl messages component, which we included in the general template. And also we pass the two attributes, first name and last name, to be included in the message. So we want to use these UI utils in our flow, and it will be also as a Flowscope variable inside our account flow. And just before on start, we define new variable, which will be our UI utils class, and here we need to provide the implementation. Let's go on create that class. And for that class we will create new package especially for utils. New package. And then UI dot utils, for example, finish, and inside we create a class, call it UI utils, finish. Now we can provide the implementation in our Webflow definition file. Helper util to assist in user interface, and don't forget that it should implement the serializable interface as well. And inside, let's create that method that will produce that message for a growl message component. So this will be public void, and I think it was greet on view load. And it should receive the following event: component system event, where inside we create faces context, or create some if condition inside, and we want to count the view loads to avoid the displaying message several times. So I will add here a class variable which will be assigned to 0 when the flow starts, and put the condition in that if statement to check if the view load count is less than 1, and probably somewhere inside I will increment this by 1. And in that condition we also want to check if context is post back actually isn't post back, because what this means? This means that we check if the user is sent from another page and is just not refreshing the current view several times. And finally we retrieve the first name and last name attributes from that event get component, get attributes, and this is a map, so we get the attribute with key first name and cast it to string, and the same we do for last name. And finally we just create the faces message. just with summary. Welcome to your account, and this is gonna be the first name and the last name. And for args, we use first name and the last name. Okay, and let's put it to the faces context. Add message. This time we need to point to the exact messages component, which will be growl messages, and put that message inside. And let's try to test it. So let's try to log in. And here's our message appeared, and it will disappear after 13 seconds. So the font is a little bit oversized. We can fix it in again our styles. So I changed the fonts to Arial, size to 12 pixels, and to position somewhere not so close to the borders. So okay, and again I'll install. I'll try to refresh, and yeah, because we added that condition to load only once and check for postback, we can't get this message again. So we need to log out and log in again. And I think I'm out of memory. And finally we got the correct font size. Okay, and it disappeared finally. So beautiful. So, and again, let's test all the functionality once more. So we accessed the application, could not get the account content, and redirected to the sign in. So if we want to create new user, we go to sign up. Here we type first name John Hall. If we try to enter some existing username, then we get the message about that. And if username is available, we can proceed with sign up. Okay, let's select the password and create the user. And we get to the account. Welcome to your account. First name, last name works. Okay. Okay, and we log out. Now we try to log in. If you try something invalid, Then we get the message, incorrect password, and finally the correct password, and we are back to our account. Okay. Then log out and get back to sign in. About account, we will load the account entity, which we will create in our upcoming videos. We will load it similar way to this as we loaded the user. So we will load the account by user ID to which it is assigned, and put to the FlowScope variable account. So we know what to do next. And to end this lesson, I'll show you how to read the properties file from XML bin files. So because it is ugly when we hardcode the database user and password and URL in the configuration file like we did previously here. So the better way is to move this to the properties file and read the properties file to get these username password values here. So I will go to again to the resource folder and create here a new file with the name data source dot properties finish, and here I'll define 3 property: URL, user, and password. And copy these values to the properties file. Save this, and in this bin XML file I will add new namespaces here. Schema context and schema location. Okay. And now I can use that namespace to point that property placeholder which is context property placeholder, where we define attribute location, and inside we type class path data source properties, and finally change these values to the property keys with the following expression: this is URL, this is user, and the last one is password. Let's save it and let's see if it's still gonna work. I think it should. Let's compile. And now if we will able to log in or create new user, then the database connection still works well. So I'll try to log in. I got into the account, then the properties works fine. As you see, the database connection is established. So okay. So guys, this is the end of today's lesson. Please feel free to report some bugs if you will find some. If this is some major or critical bugs, I will fix it. If it's some minor bugs, then probably you also can fix it yourself. So okay, your homework is to test the application and report bugs if you find some. So finally, I will commit these changes to the repository. Implementing Ajax database, querying and reading properties files, and what else is covered in today's lesson. Okay, just say tc. Okay, good. All files selected, and finally commit. And good. Okay guys, see you next time.